highlighted by Dato' Karol Saleh in his opening address, ASEAN is a dynamic and fast-growing region. And in today's discussion, we are going to showcase two of ASEAN's brightest stars, two companies which are leaders in the industry and are disrupting the industry norms. Private equity is a powerful force for development and promotion of corporate growth. We are pleased to have with us a leading private equity firm to provide their insights as to how they help create and shape the next wave of rising stars. So let me kick off. Ladies and gentlemen, the pace of change in our businesses is continuing to accelerate, driven by technological advances, ESG initiatives to address climate change and its threats, and we all want to build a more sustainable and better world. This has led to a wave of new industries and opportunities. We're here to discuss today this new wave, some of the challenges faced, and what the future may bring in our fast and evolving world. Let me first start with challenges. Taiwan. ESB is a very young company. It's playing a pivotal role in reimagining the two-wheel transportation in Indonesia. Can you share with us your aspirations, the main challenges to electric vehicle adoption, as well as the EV ecosystem that you are building?
Okay, thank you, Rajiv. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Iwan Surya Putra. I'm from the Volta, Indonesia. And I would like to thank you, Maybank, to organize this event this morning. Okay, so yes, Volta is actually 1.5 years old. 2 years ago, we built our EV motorcycle factory in Semarang, in Central Java. And what inspired us to build this one is, actually Volta is one of the MCAS subsidiaries. MCAS is a listed public company in Indonesia. When we start to enter this business, actually what we're thinking is the Indonesian market, of course from the business perspective. Indonesia right now have 110 million two-wheelers EV motorcycles on the road with a license plate. And every year, 6 to 7 new vehicles, the two-wheelers EV, is rolled out in the street. So this market is very huge. And all of the players mostly is from the Japanese motorcycles factory. So we see this opportunity because the incumbent players is not yet entered the EV until now. And we see that the market in Indonesia for the two-wheelers EV is very big. So that's why we decided to enter the two-wheelers EV. But of course, we know the challenges because we study that the people who ride the motorcycles in Indonesia usually travel at least, because they mostly is the mid and low income family. So their house is of course not in the middle of the city. They come from the suburban area. So they need to travel 30 kilometers, sometimes 40 kilometers to work in Jakarta or capital city of the province. So with the challenges of the two-wheelers EV, because the battery is limited, the distance of the battery usually right now is 50 to 60 kilometers for one battery. So we decide to build the swap battery station. So with this swap battery station, the idea is give you only less than 1 minute to swap the battery. And then you can continue your journey without no need to worry or anxious about the distance. Let's say I want to travel today 200 kilometers. I don't need to worry if my battery finish, then how? No need to worry because we already prepared the swap battery station. And we see from the business is this is also a very good opportunity because when you sell the motorcycles, the profit is only one time when you sell the motorcycles outside from your showroom, that is your profit. But with the swap battery station, every day we generate profit from our swap battery station. And of course, the swap battery station need the technology to enhance the performance of the customers' comfort and also easy to use these platforms. So we decide to put the technology, MCAS and its subsidiaries technology company. So in each of the battery that we put IoT in our battery. Of course, in our swap battery station and of course in our motorcycles. So we can monitor all of this battery. Where is the location? What is the temperatures? Each of the cell of the battery, how its performance, and also we know the distance, how much they travel, and a lot of the big data, life cycle of the battery, etc., etc. So with this, all of the big data, then we can later on we mine and we make decision on this later on when we need to put where we need to build a new station, and then which area, how many big station we need to build. Everything is based on the big data. So all of these challenges now become opportunity in our portfolio. And then how we build the ecosystem, of course, because MCAS have a lot of the networks. So the networks that we have, we also benefit from this existing network that we have. Then we can easily build our swap battery station. I think that's for the start. Yeah.
Thank you, Pak. Clearly, charging stations has been a big impediment for rollout of EVs in many of the Southeast Asian countries. Thank you for sharing your aspirations and challenges. If I can move to Jens, the Vietnamese banking sector is also facing increased challenges. What do you think will be the 3 trends defining the next wave of growth in the Vietnam banking sector? And how do you see Techcombank being positioned to ride this wave as one of the fastest growing banks in the country?
Thanks, Reggie, for the question. So I think probably the topics are not so different compared to a lot of the other markets. So the first one, I think, is actually digitization. So and after COVID, there has been a massive shift towards using digital means to engage with banks. And I think that has led to a couple of things. First one is financial inclusion, which were always at relatively low levels, and actually has skyrocketed because it's much easier to go and reach out. And I think there's a massive change in terms of how branch networks are used. And so just give you a number, and probably 70% of all acquisitions which we're doing right now are completely digital. So nobody is actually touching any branch anymore. And we are trying to get this year around 3 to 4 million new customers, which means that the importance of branch networks is actually reduced significantly. And so digitization is clearly one of the really big topics. Second one, I think, is wealth management. And just because as we are at the inflection point as GDP per capita is really going up, and I think for the first time, a broader set of the population really gets disposable income, right? And what to do with that disposable income. I think there are not a lot of good opportunities out in the market because asset classes are relatively constrained. Everything goes either into real estate or it goes into stock market, and then sometimes you have a lot of these boom-bust cycles. I think a real structured wealth management building up and even retirement options, etc., I think is something which is really need to be built. And again, we are working on that one quite a lot. And we're probably one of the largest players on the bond market where we really try to create new asset classes. And last one is capital markets. I think there's no way that the growth of Vietnam can be financed through balance sheet intermediation of banks. I think we need the capital markets. A lot of dislocation has happened right now because these capital markets have not been developed in a sustainable manner. So I think the interventions of the government which have recently happened, I think are right. We see probably a stronger capital markets coming up. And again, I think it's really up to us, for example, as Techcombank, to really start leading the way when it comes to professionalizing issuance, ratings, etc. The fourth one probably is ESG. And I think it's not so much at the forefront, but if you really take a look into the commitments which have been undertaken by Vietnam in terms of decarbonization and zero emissions, etc., we need to actually overhaul the whole power grid. We need to actually find very different ways to increase the usage of alternative energy forms, etc. And so just pass, and we're by far not having the largest balance sheet in the country, but we committed roughly 5 billion into these kind of sustainable energies for the next and couple of years in combination with ADB, US8, etc. So I think these are all some of the big themes, but again, I think they are not so different than from some of the other markets.
Thanks, Jens. I think digitalization and wealth management is something I want to come back to in the later part of the conversation. Alvin, you're not a stranger to challenges, being a very experienced private equity investor in the region, but more specifically, in relation to companies who focus on technology and innovation solutions, what do you see as their main challenges for these companies, and how do they become the winners of tomorrow?
Sure. In terms of private equity, we do seek cash flow as one of the primary criteria when we look at companies. I think unfortunately, right, a lot of the early stage companies who are very innovative, who are at the forefront of technology, don't generate cash flow. So, typically we do not look at those companies, but that's not to say, right, when we invest in companies, the more traditional cash flow generating companies, we don't look at tech, right? For example, if you look at a retail business today, right, with physical stores, I guess, disruptions from the online channels is one of the main issue, right, that they're going to grapple with. And we always look at, what are the disruptors that are going to come. So whenever we look at companies, more traditional companies, the disruption element, right, is key. We look at, in terms of where the challenges are going to come from and how do we mitigate, right, against those disruptions. We cover a bit of the asset management bank. We bought a asset manager in Malaysia, and one of the challenges obviously is that how do we seamlessly capture clients, right, and all the way, right, to giving investment advice. So, we don't look at early stage investing in tech, but we do keep a very close watch on what's tech, what's happening in the world, so that we can adopt in our portfolio companies.
Thanks, Alvin. I was actually going to ask you about Aham later, and I still have a follow-on question from that, but I'll come to that later. If I can just move to competition. The world today is becoming increasingly competitive. New technologies are giving rise to new challenges, driving down margins, and in many cases, reinventing business models. I want to discuss the competitive environment and how the rising stars are evolving in this ever-changing environment. Maybe starting with Jens. Competition is nothing new to banking. Clearly, it's ramping up in Vietnam, in particular in the digital space, with names like Timo, Tnex, Cake, and others. Techcombank has been particularly successful in digital transformation. Could you share with us some of your achievements and how you see the competitive environment shaping up in Vietnam, and what is Techcombank doing to stay ahead of the pack?
Thanks for the question. Okay, so first one, and probably a little bit controversial, but probably that's the intent. If I think about competition and think about fintechs, I believe a lot of the fintechs exist because banks are not doing their job. And when banks do their jobs, I think it should be harder for fintechs to compete. So I think we have a lot of very good fintechs which actually solved real customer problems, ZaloPay, Momo, I mean, a lot of these. And I think right now banks are really getting their act together. So what you see is that the downloads right now of banking apps actually outstrips the downloads of fintech apps, which is very different to a lot of the other markets. So I believe over time, and I'm not so concerned about the fintechs. Might be wrong, or maybe I should be more paranoid, but I really believe that's not where most of the competition is coming from. So that brings me to some of the names you refer to, Timo, Tnex, etc. And I think there's this question of, can banks transform actually quick enough, or do you need to launch attacker banks because you believe they are faster, they can actually use more new technology, and therefore can capture the market and more successfully? And I think the assumption underlying it is banks cannot be so fast, incumbent banks, the technology cannot change quick enough, and management attention will not be focused enough on solving that. We had the debate very early on in our transformation story, and the answer we gave is, and I think it's an easy way out, and I think we need to transform the main bank, and we believe actually we can do that, and we think we're not big enough to actually afford this experiment, because if we really take a look into what's happening in the world, there are only very, very rare success cases of standalone banks, and especially standalone banks which have been forked out or carved out of existing banks. So we went down the road of we need to transform the main bank. So over the last 2 or 3 years, we probably put in 8 or 9 major new platforms into the bank. And right now, we're running around 50% of all our transactions on the cloud. And if you take a survey done by Accenture at the end of 2021, for the 100 leading global banks, that number was 8%, right? So we think actually we should be getting closer to 70-80% by the end of 2025. And we have 90% of our customers, active customers, digitally engaged. We see and engage with 70% of them more than once a day. So a lot of these numbers, which you usually say are reserved for these attacker banks, I think you can do that within an existing bank, right? And if you again then look at 70% of customers in Vietnam are saying, if all things equal, things are offered by an established bank compared to a new bank, we actually prefer it being offered by the established bank. So again, doesn't mean, and we get it all right and all of this, but I think we were very clear in what we want to do, and then just put the focus on that and not getting too much distracted by speedboats and whatever kind of examples you can use. We just try to do it in the main bank.
Thank you. Obviously, there's been a number of new digital banks being launched in Malaysia and Singapore, and time will tell as to whether they eat the lunch of the traditional banks. But I think the model that you've chosen is very similar to a lot of the other traditional banks across Southeast Asia. Pak Irwan, as you roll out your business, can you describe the competitive landscape in Indonesia for both the sort of electric motorcycle distribution business as well as the battery swapping business? And how are the traditional players, your competitors obviously of today, reacting to your entry in the market?
Yes, thank you for the question. The traditional players right now, they still wait and see, I see. And they doesn't have real products or real rollout to the market for the two-wheeler EV. But the competitiveness from the existing players, right now there's a 20 brand of the motorcycles EV in Indonesia. But the real motorcycles that they roll out from this more than 20 brand is maybe only 10 brands, which is already in the street. So from these 10 brands who already in the street, only 3 have the swap battery station. I mean the business of the swap battery station. From these 3 operators of the players of the swap battery station, each of them have different kind of the business strategy. So like example, Volta is we charge the user by every time you use the battery, you want to go to our swap station. Every time you swap, we will charge you. But the other players is not like that. They charge by kilometers. And some of the players have different strategy again, which is from 2 of us, which is they not charge by kilometers, not charge by the every time they want to swap the battery, but they charge by monthly subscription. So from these 3 players, actually we are not competing each other because the business model is different. So customer can choose which one you like. If you need to every day, then you choose this one. If you want to per kilometer, use this one, and then etc. So this situation is actually very good for the EV because customer have a lot of choices. The market is very big, and then each of the players is not directly competing each other. So, but the thing is, situation is much better because a few months back, the government of Indonesia is supporting the EV. And they give program, which is, we call it, to make it simple, is subsidized if you buy the electric motorcycles. So with this government program, actually it's more bright market for the Indonesian EV. Because now, people who cannot afford to buy the electric motorcycles, they can apply for the government subsidies and then they buy electric motorcycles. So this is make the ICA or the incumbent existing players, which is not in the EV, I think is more feel, I think, not so good, maybe something like that. But the thing is, every month, even last month, government is supporting even more. So government last month give the new regulation for all of the EV, car included, no need to pay road tax, zero. So when you buy car, you get subsidized around 10%. And then if you, every year, you no need to pay tax at all, zero. So with this condition, we are the EV players in Indonesia, I think it's very, very good. So competition is, I think, maybe 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road, we will compete. But right now, together we build the market. Even I discussed with same players in the market, government gives around 200,000 motorcycles to subsidize this year. So this is June already, and we have 6 months left to December. So this 10 of the players which have the motorcycles in the market, let's say in the next 6 months, our factory is working 24 hours a day. I think 200,000 is very difficult to achieve also. And next year, 2024, 600,000 motorcycles subsidized by the government. So if this plan works, you can imagine how good is the Indonesian market for the EV.
The opportunity for you is massive. But coming back to the traditional players, the ICE motorcycles, how are they reacting?
I cannot answer that in their point of view, but until now, we're still waiting for the real products. Okay. And we don't see any products from the players like the existing one. So we see that in Japan, they have their own standard. So Honda, Kawasaki, and Yamaha, they make alliance to make the battery standard. And the voltage they use in Japan, North Asia, is different like what we have. And the temperatures operate for the battery is different each of the country. So in the North Asia is cooler. If you use LFP battery, below zero you cannot start your motorcycle if you use LFP. So you need to use NMC. But the other way around, if you use in the Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, it's hot. If you use NMC, it's a little bit concerned on the safety. Because use NMC when the temperature is high, boom. And it will be, if you take photo, put it in the social media, it's disaster. But if LFP is only smoke, so it's more safer. So that's why each of the country different. That's why I think our competitor, the existing one, they think hard which one they will choose. And to make this a standard for the whole countries is not easy also.
No, thank you for that. Alvin, CVC has invested in numerous companies. How does CVC ensure that they remain competitive? And can you provide some examples of how you kind of ensure that they remain competitive despite an ever-changing environment?
Sure, maybe drawing examples from what was discussed earlier. I mean, if you look at banks, I actually agree, right? If the traditional banks get their act correct, there's no way, the digital bank can actually come in. However, right? Some of you may have this experience. I personally have, right? So I want to change my telephone number from a local bank in Singapore. And they say they send me a PIN. I say, look, I need to change my telephone number. So how do I get the PIN? Say, okay, then you have to come down to the branch to do it. In this day and age, you still have to go down to the branch to change my telephone number. Come on, right? So I think that's why for digital bank, right, to appeal to the tech savvy, to the younger crowd, you'll get those guys coming in because the traditional banks have not moved fast enough. I think this is one example. I think looking at EV as well, right? I mean, some of the traditional automakers were caught, right, by Tesla, right? Yep. And they did not react fast enough to the EV trend, which is why Tesla is now the global market leader. So from our perspective, right, we do have to be very mindful, right, what is out there. I think drawing from a global network is very important, right? We can draw on portfolio companies in the West. They have gone through the cycle, they have gone through seen that before, can use that experience in Asia. I think that's the one way that we can actually mitigate against tech. The other thing is really staying very close to what's happening in the world. When we invested in Munchies, for example, right? I mean, the e-commerce business there wasn't big. Using the social media network in China, for example, is very important. Getting, before TikTok became so big, you never imagine, right? E-commerce being overtaken by TikTok. So these are some of the things that we have to be mindful of and we have to really stay close to.
Thanks for that. I'd like to move to probably the hottest topic right at this moment, artificial intelligence, or the AI revolution. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, emphasized that the transformative power of AI, and he believes that AI will have a greater impact on humanity than electricity or fire. I'm sure many of the CEOs and CFOs here have noted that merely mentioning AI in your results announcement sends stock prices higher immediately. Pak Irwan, I understand that ESB signed a collaboration agreement with Microsoft actually last week to implement collaborative AI. Can you share with us what this collaboration entails and how you see AI being incorporated into your business model?
Yep, thank you. Since we signed agreement with Microsoft, almost every day I got people WhatsApp me about what is this, what you do with Microsoft. So we honor to work with Microsoft together in Indonesia. Why? Because Microsoft is really choose the company who can support the green transportation, sustainability, and also support the government of Indonesia for the net zero emission. So to able to do that, it's very simple. It's from the first week we signed with the Microsoft team together. Now you can go to our website, and when there's a AI there, the chat GPT AI, we implement in the first stage, which is help customer to buy or to encourage them to buy the electronic motorcycles, EV motorcycles. So if let's say now you talk with a sales person and then they want to influence you to buy the EV with all of the benefit of the EV, now it changed with the AI, with the computers. And this one is, we test and we know that this one, wow, totally different. A lot of the perspective which is user can get from these computers with the AI. But it will not stop there. It is only the beginning. This is the first week. The first week we put it in the website, customer can talk with the AI. But what is the fault I have is, actually is part of the NDA, I cannot tell everything, so, but I give you the idea. When you buy motorcycles, actually what you see is the motorcycles. The customer sees only motorcycles. But the behind stage, because we have the data from the battery, we know how many times they swap the battery, in which area they swap the battery, what time. In this person, how kilometers they travel a day. And from this, all of the thousands of the customers, we can categorize them according to many categories. So let's say example, I want to put the categories of the people who not come back home for the last 7 days. Because of the location every night they stay, I know. So this we can do also. So this is very complicated, very big data. But behind these motorcycles, there's a lot of the data that we can get. We know how many times they go to the shopping malls, how many times they go to the works, how many times they visit the customer. We all have this location-based data. And all of this is processing, if by human or by computer, of course, it's not enhanced like by AI. So later on, when we have this data, of course, all of the purpose is green transportation. We can later on make more good decision and more good suggestion to what we can do and what we can build for the next application to make user easier, let's say I know that this customer profile is traveling 250 kilometers a day with motorcycles, and this is many that we have customer like this, beyond imagination, 250 kilometers a day, is circling Singapore round island one time every day, and thousands of people doing this in Jakarta. So before the battery finish, we can give suggestion in the application. You can stop in this place and swap the battery. The battery availability in this station is many, and you can, we predict that you will travel another 100 kilometers. Better you swap battery in this place, because the next station, maybe the battery is not so many stock like this station, something like that. So to make people easier, to make them glue or attach, come back with the EV, and make them comfortable. This is one of the key important thing. And one thing is to calculate how many carbon footprint that we can save. Is of course all of the players who want to buy the carbon, they want to know exactly how much carbon you sell and what is the proof. And to prove that is we need the IoT to track the carbon footprint itself every day with how many travel they go, how many carbon footprint they can save, and so on and so on. That's why we honor to cooperate with Microsoft, and we have our platforms and ecosystem ready to support that. I think that's what I can explain right now.
Fantastic. Unfortunately, due to the implementation of AI, you've now put 150 data analysts out of work at ESB. Alvin, you mentioned your acquisition of Aham, and I wanted to ask you a bit more about that. As a private equity investor, what do you bring to the table in terms of acquiring this business? And what sort of synergies do you think you can create between your portfolio companies? And since we're talking about AI, is that something that you're looking to roll out, robo-investing potentially, and something we can all look forward to in terms of a product from Aham?
Yep. Okay, maybe let me start in terms of how we can contribute to Aham when we bought it. I think one is really, buying the number 3 player in Malaysia. I think our intention and ambition is that we do want to make it a regional play. So having a network that we have at CVC in terms of acquisitions in the region is important. I mean, we look at the ASEAN 6, right? We know how big potentially the markets in Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines are. And Malaysia in comparison is a much smaller market. So having that regional ambition and helping them execute M&A is one way we can do it. I think secondly is really about alternatives, right? I mean, you have a discussion panel on alternatives tomorrow. I think that's the trend. With equities market, you saw how equities market are performing. You saw how the bond market is performing. I think you're better off putting in fixed deposit, right, in a way. But alternatives can help you generate the alpha, right? And 20%, 25% IR, so it's pretty good. So I think that's one way that we thought we can help, help the distribution of Aham, into the alternative space. And if you ask me about robo, AI investing, I think it's a good tool to have. We mentioned about how powerful data analysis is, right? I mean, if you look at, we look at store retail opening before, analyzing the footfall, right, is very important. And actually, we have companies, and so data analysts are still, very much in demand because they can actually analyze, right, in terms of the footfall, across the road, how many people are walking there, because you all have mobile phones, they can really track everybody, right, how many times you walk around. So by starting that, we can really optimize where your store opening is. I think that's something that we have used. Coming back to AI investing, I think it's a good tool to really supplement what we have, meaning, if we look at, for example, what's the global trend right now, we can blast out to people, and if there are questions and more in-depth questions, then we can follow up with more in-depth discussions. I think end of the day, when you invest into something or when you want to buy insurance, right, you still need that personal touch. I think that's quite key, and especially for the high net worth client base. I think having that personal touch is still important. It's like also telemedicine, right? I mean, general telemedicine, you can talk to the AI, you can talk to the robot, but when it comes to become more serious, I think you want a good doctor in front of you, right? So that's my perspective.
Thanks, Alvin. Jens, from a banking perspective, you had a lot of experience as a management consultant, so it puts you in a great position to appreciate the full impact of generative AI. Do you think AI will enable us to reimagine the future of banking? And how do you see this technology being used at Techcombank?
Okay, so the first one is probably to say what is a lot of buzzwords, right? So what is AI, generative AI? So in the simple forms, AI basically, I ask, is that an elephant? If I show you a picture and I train basically on a lot of pictures of elephants, right? And then the system would say yes, no, right? And it's like segmentation. Do you think that is a wealthy customer? Yes, no. So generative AI would probably say, oh, can you show me an elephant who dances and morphs into a unicorn? And in real time, we'll see a picture of a dancing elephant morphing into a unicorn. So that is a completely different form of creation, experience, etc. I think, especially for a bank like Techcombank in an emerging market where we're still constrained by capability sets, using these kind of support tools will actually make a huge difference. So just think about marketing and sales. And already we invest a lot in, let's say, the full Adobe stack and all of this, but we still are constrained and saying, okay, let's send this person this picture. But going forward, machine learning models can actually really saying, oh, please, why do you send a picture? This one is really interested actually in a video. So why do we not create a video clip and where this person can explain how to best invest? And all of that can actually be done by models in real time. And we can really be very, very individualized. So anything which has to do with software programming, let's say translating old code into new code, and risk management, legal, wherever there's the need for really kind of creating something new, not just identifying things, but supporting, I think it actually has a huge range of applications. I believe that humans are still important, exactly as you said, but I think the support they can get from these kind of tools is completely different than what they can currently get. And ultimately, it will be a question of what kind of technology stack have you implemented, what is the kind of underlying data infrastructure, are you able to use these kind of applications in the cloud, can you use unstructured data, can you actually really use natural language programming models, etc. So it will actually task a lot on banks to make sure that they can use this full technology. However, there was a report recently released by my ex-former colleagues, McKinsey, where they're basically saying they estimate an annual impact of roughly $300 billion in top-line revenue impact for the banking sector overall, globally, right? So I think there is a lot, but I think we're only scratching the surface, and I think it will take a lot to have technology in place for a lot of banks to really use this on a broad base. But if you are there, and I think that comes back to some of the digital startups, they might be much faster in applying some of that stuff. So I think that changes a little bit the game.
Okay, so definitely AI is going to change the game for all of us. Unfortunately, we're running short of time, so I just wanted to end with one last question. It's a little bit more personal and a bit more on a lighter note. Starting first with Alvin. We've discussed a lot today about digitalization, technology, the pace of change, etc. I sometimes feel as a banker, as an investor, we need to be more like a scientist to kind of reimagine what the future would look like. How do you stay ahead in your learning to stay on top of all these trends? And how does that truly add value to your investee companies?
Yeah, I think maybe I can sum it up with just one word, right? Be open, right? Be open because, you know, there are definitely new technologies out there. There are younger people who are doing very innovative things. Don't discount them. um, stay open in terms of what they are doing, learn from them, and then you can then use it, right, in your portfolio companies, and also use it when when we do due diligence of companies. Often we are very concerned about disruptions, what is out there, and what can be done, right, to mitigate those. So I think being open is very important as an investor, and then really staying on top of what is out there.
Always be open to new possibilities. Jens, you've spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. How do the business practices and cultures differ? And is there something or a part of the culture or business practice that you'd like to take home to your home country, Germany?
A lot of things on taking home. So let's start with the first one. I think there are so many differences and cultures, and so it's really hard to basically pinpoint, right? I think let's focus maybe on what are some of the similarities, and then everything else is probably a difference, right? And so first one is, I think the openness to digital and digital advancement, I think is really very, very different compared to the rest of the world. I think the embracing of technology and the way how, at least on the banking side, what I see in terms of innovations, I think this is actually right now where innovation is really happening. If I go to some of the other markets, US, Europe, I think they are really behind. And some of the reasons is because they were all much more ahead when it came to laptops and computers, so their world is actually still very much a non-mobile world. I think the second one, which is a common challenge, I think for all of us, is the whole question of how to think about retirement and how to secure actually, there's still probably a little bit living of today because there's not enough and maybe also ability to save. But if I look into markets like Vietnam, but probably also Indonesia, right? I mean, how are we dealing as a bank to really, or as a financial services industry, how to really create that safety net going forward, I think is a big common denominator, and I think we will need to take a look into that, right? And I think the last one is really this notion of ESG and dealing with how to make sure that actually we're living in a better world going forward. I think there's still so much consumption and people trying to get to a better world that I think we're not using our resources in the best possible way. And I understand the trade-offs, but I think we probably need to think a little bit more ahead. And again, nobody will save that problem actually for us, right? So what would I like to take back to Germany? I think Germany is a complete digital desert. And so whenever my kids want to open up a bank account, and they're basically saying, Dad, please don't come with us. You're embarrassing. And because when I look at the services and the offerings there, and I mean, really and I would say 5 to 10 years behind what we are having in these markets here.
Thanks for that. Irwan, running a startup isn't easy. Convincing your board, investors, customers, not everybody may truly appreciate your vision. How do you sustain the mental stamina and stay the course?
Stamina, okay. Of course, stamina depleted when you have problems, and then you cannot solve your problems. But the one thing I learned is we need to learn new things every day to solve our problems. So you knew that IT technology, especially in the EV, is the technology changing very fast. We have a lot of problems we facing every day, but thankfully a lot of the technology is coming. Example is the battery. So make it fast is the existing battery right now, the price is a little bit higher, the distance is limited, the life cycle is also not so great. But the thing is, customer complain, of course market want the price going down, but we learned that, after the lithium battery, the sodium battery is coming. But the good thing is the sodium battery is what we heard last year, the technology we just read in the PDF, but next month they send from China the sample to us to test. So the technology so fast they change, not only the IT and then also the battery, the motor, the controller and everything. But of course, in the real business is we also glad that because I come from the MCAS groups, a lot of the people, company in the groups work out with us together as a team. So it will be help me to reduce my burden, and then they can help me to build the networks and also deliver to the market faster, and a lot of the support from the IT teams for all of the subsidiaries of the MCAS. So it's make me, not easily to depleted my stamina, So I very grateful about all of the teamworks and also learn everything new every day.
You've been at this game for a long time, so you definitely have a lot of stamina. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, ladies and gentlemen. I think one thing that is clear, traditional businesses will need to change to remain relevant, to rise above the competition. Clearly, being open to new technologies, open to new ideas, the use of technology and digitalization is critical to ensure that we remain winners, we address and respond rapidly to changing competition, as well as customer needs. If not, the tech startups, the new startups, the future rising stars are definitely going to eat our lunch. With that, I'd like to thank Pak Iwan, Jens, Alvin, thank you very much for this very enlightening and engaging discussion. I definitely learned a lot today. Thank you so much.